This episode is brought to you by newspapers.com. Discover your mom in the paper when you search newspapers.com. Find the stories that made her who she is today by searching the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers.com makes it easy to find your mom, grandma, and others in the papers. Search more than 945 million pages from major news titles to small-town papers. Uncover birth and marriage announcements, obituaries, photos, and much, much more. Explore papers dating back to 1690 or as recent as last month. Newspapers.com is used by millions of people every month for genealogy, historical research, and more. Find something you like? With newspapers.com, it's a snap to save and share articles with family and friends or attach them directly to your ancestry tree. Use promo code FamilyTreeMagazine, all one word, for a 20% discount on your subscription. That's code FamilyTreeMagazine, all one word, and celebrate the stories of a lifetime with newspapers.com.
Welcome to the May 2024 episode of the Family Tree Magazine podcast from America's #1 genealogy magazine. I'm Rachel Christian, filling in for Lisa Louise Cook. Researching enslaved ancestors has always been a unique challenge. However, an ambitious new project from American Ancestors is working to recover the names of the millions of people who were enslaved in the United States. In this episode, Lindsay Fulton joins us to share more about the 10 Million Names Project. Lindsay Fulton is a professional genealogist as well as the head of research services at American Ancestors. She is also heading up the 10 Million Names Project, which is an exciting initiative that was announced last year. Welcome to the podcast, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So for those that don't know, can you just give us a brief overview of what the 10 Million Names Project is and what you are endeavoring to do?
Sure. 10 Million Names is a collaborative project dedicated to recovering the names of the estimated 10 million men, women, and children of African descent who were enslaved in what is now the United States before 1865. The project is seeking to amplify the voices of people who have been telling their family stories for centuries, connecting researchers and data partners with people who are seeking answers to family history questions. We're expanding access to data, resources, and information about enslaved African Americans.
Excellent. I mean, that is no small feat.
No, it is. It's going to take us a little bit to finish, and I don't know if we will ever really finish. But you know, we have the goal in mind, we have the number in mind, and we're going to get. We've already gotten started.
Yeah. How you mentioned data partners. So can you tell us the primary ways that the 10 Million Names Project is going about this research and the sources that you guys have used so far?
Yes, of course. So there's really two ways that we're doing this. One is we have a team of genealogists who work on projects that we've identified that are record sets that can be studied. And what we did was we divided it up into 4 different what we call pilot projects or flagship projects. And this is really based off of other study projects that we've done over the years. So American Ancestors, we've been around since 1845. We've been doing study projects basically since our inception. So we know that it works when we kind of put a box around a certain record set. So because 10 million names is so big, we knew we had to put some sort of, kind of come up with buckets to put these record sets into. And we knew we couldn't just have it be one. We knew we needed more than that. So we came up with 5. So the 5 are Making America, which is looking at records of enslaved laborers within and beyond the plantation. So that's records that are specific to a location. Census records, estate records, deeds, probates, things like that would be included in that collection or that project. The second is Journeys to Liberation. That's looking at mariners, migrants, and freedom seekers. So that's going to be focusing on court records, manumissions, testimonies of people who came through the Underground Railroad. If there's mariners who are leaving the South and coming north, particularly to New Bedford, we'll include those in that collection or in that particular project. On the battlefield is our third, which is looking at military records, soldiers, veterans, refugees. The fourth is what we call community building, which is looking at historically Black organizations, churches, fraternities and sororities, fraternal organizations, et cetera, like the Masons, for example. And then the fifth is remembering slavery testimonials after emancipation. So that's looking at like oral tradition, the WPA projects, and the interviews that were done at Fisk University, et cetera. So when we have those 5 flagship projects, we then have a group of genealogists working for 10 Million Names that help us to kind of work on record sets within those flagship projects to make data available. So right now we're working on the WPA as one. So we're going to create a database based on the WPA interviews that were done and submitted to the Library of Congress. Those are going to have names of enslaved people, relationships, the names of the enslavers, where everyone was living. So we're going to create a database, a traditional database that you would search, but then we're also going to pair that with family trees so that people can kind of see, so people can connect up to that record set. We're doing the same thing with U.S. colored troops and a project that we're working on for Harvard, looking at some of the people who were associated with Harvard University. So, we're working on all of these projects to identify record sets where there's names, and then we're going to pair that with a family tree. So that's one way that we're working on the project. The other is partnering with, this is a long answer, I'm sorry, but partnering with organizations. And organizations have been doing, there's many out there who've been doing this work for many, many, many years. And we want to partner with those organizations to make the data available. So make these names available, make the stories available, shine a light on what these organizations are doing. You can come to the 10 Million Names database and search for a name. You might get a result that was provided by one of our partner organizations. And in that instance, you would be brought over to that website to look at what that database looks like. So right now we're partnering with the New Bedford Whaling Museum, the White House Historical Association, the Daughters of the American Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many partners that we're either in talks with or have official partnerships with, where people are going to be providing us with that data so that we can make it available. And then all of this, again, will be free. I don't know if I've mentioned so far, but this is going to be a free database that will be available with a guest member account, so just a username and password.
Well, thank you for that answer. I think that really illustrates the scope of this project, the sheer size of it. I mean, that is just an incredible amount of moving parts. Like
a lot of moving parts. Yes, that's a great way of describing it. Exactly.
But I can see how that will be valuable when you synthesize all that into this one resource at the end. So if I could just ask you a little more about that. You already touched on it, but as I understand it, the final product of this project is going to be this free searchable database where you can go in and type in a name and hopefully find somebody. Can you describe a little bit more about the database that this is all working towards?
So it will be traditional databases like we're used to on, American Ancestors or Ancestry.com or Family Search. So there'll be a 10 million names database that will search collections. So traditional collections that we use in genealogy. But it will also search the trees that we make. And the important element of the trees will allow people to connect to people who are living in like the 1950s. So the goal that we have is that we would start with an enslaved individual and then bring those descendants down to anyone that would be included on the 1950 census. And our logic there is it's a federal document, so it's going to have reach across the United States, and also the federal government has decided that is a publicly available document. So we feel comfortable with that kind of being our cutoff. So most people can come to the site, and they probably would know someone that was living in the 1950s. So the person they're looking for, their grandparent, their great-grandparent, should be included on the 1950 census, and then would be included in the 10 Million Names Project. So the important part for us is accessibility, especially for people who are new to the world of genealogy. And if we can provide them with that link to someone that was included in 1950 or in 1940, then we know that we can bring them, back further and further. So if we have someone we would have someone who was enslaved in that tree, so they would be able to learn more about that. That's the ideal goal of the project.
Excellent. Yeah, and as you mentioned, it would just take a user account, so it would be free to access. You just have to create a login.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. Well, this is the Best Websites podcast, after all. So I was wondering if we could turn our attention to the 10 Million Names Project website.
Of course.
So when you visit 10millionnames.org, there's already just a ton of information. I see maps, I see stories. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's already available on 10millionnames.org?
Sure. So, as you said, there's our About section. So if you want to learn about our Scholars Council, so we have a council of scholars who help us with historic context when it comes to speaking about 10 million names. And then we also have a genealogist council, and then an advisory board. So we've got the historians, the genealogists, and then important people in the United States that are going to help us kind of tell more and more people about this project, and to do the project in the best way that we can. And in addition to the About, you can also see the staff that we have at 10 Million Names on the About section. After About, there's a project section. So the flagships that I talked about, there's a deeper explanation of what those 5 would be. And it also, on the website, will indicate the records that we've already created as a searchable database, or stuff that we're about to do. So it's stuff we're working on. So things to be keeping an eye out for in the future would come out of that project. There's a map that shows the population shifts from 1790 to 1860 of the enslaved and free populations in the United States. So you can just kind of get a sense of where everyone's living. There's stories that our genealogists have found over the course of doing the 10 Million Names Project. And then my favorite section is our research help section. So this can provide you with, there's some pages that will go over specifically like how to do African American genealogy, or the best resources that are available. And that works. It looks kind of like a family search wiki. There's links that you can click on. There's historic context on there as well. And then what we've also done is we've linked some of the videos, some of the webinars that we've done thus far on that page as well. So there's one about the 10 Million Names Project. There's one about finding enslaved African American ancestors in New England. There's one about researching Black soldiers in the Civil War. And appropriately for the 250th, we have a video on researching Black patriots and loyalists during the Revolutionary era. So those are 4 that we currently have. We're going to continue to do this throughout the year. Anytime that we do a 10 Million Names themed webinar, that will go onto our site as well. And then there's a search page. So search will bring you to the databases that we have that are active. There's a little icon, a 10 Million Names icon next to the database title. So you can click there and you can search that database. We're currently working on bringing all of those collections together, those databases together, so you can just do one search of all of them. That's something that you should look for in the upcoming weeks. It should be done fairly soon.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is that there are already databases that are available, or collections rather, that you can search.
Yes.
Yes. Which is great. And it's good to know that soon they'll be consolidated into one resource.
Yes.
And I think when you describe everything that's already available online, it really shows that this is an entry point for people, even if they have no prior experience with genealogy, which is cool. There's a lot out there.
Yes.
Do you have any tips for our listeners on searching the database as it is right now?
So as it is right now, you have to select a particular collection. So if you know where your ancestors are from, even historically from, I like searching by location as the best way to start. So there's access to all of the census records that we have access to. So you can search there; those are for free. And again, I would look by location as a way to start. And then after that, there's if you have an ancestor who served in the Civil War, there are profiles of some of those Black soldiers. Specifically, we have the Massachusetts regiments, the 54th, the 55th, and the 5th Cavalry that's available, but we're going to continue to add to those as well. The other option, because a lot of times if you're looking for enslaved individuals, that you need to be searching by first name. So again, that's a reason for you to search with location as kind of the main driving factor in that. You can do a search on almost all websites by just using a first name. You don't necessarily have to put in a last name, and that could get you what you're looking for.
Awesome. So, pivoting a little bit, we recently published an article here at Family Tree on what to do when you find out that you have ancestors who were slaveholders. If someone were to discover that in their family history, and they have information that they can contribute about those enslaved individuals, how would they go about doing that?
One of my favorite parts of this project is us asking the public to assist with information. So when you go to our website, 10millionnames.org, there is the first thing that you see on that homepage, there's going to be a section that says Help 10 Million Names Research. You can click on there and it will bring you to a form where you can submit information to us. And we ask a little bit of information about what you're about to share. So there's a place where you can upload a family history questionnaire. So if you don't have a family tree, or you don't have notes or an image that you wanted to share with us, but you have knowledge about, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and you want to share that with us, the questionnaire is the best thing to fill out. We also have a place for you to upload your GEDCOM, to upload an oral history, if that's something, if you did that with a family member and you wanted to share that, you can upload that there. And then there's places for you to provide information about family materials, family notes, genealogies, or Bible records. We've received a few Bible records during this process. There have also been people who have shared original material with us, naming enslaved people that they had in their family papers. So we got a donation from a person who lived in Louisiana. Their family, they were enslavers. They have state records from right around emancipation. 1863 is the date of that document, and there's 35 people who are named on that document.
Wow.
Their name, their gender, and their age.
Wow.
We have tried to find those named individuals in the 1870 census. There's not a huge number of years between those two documents, and we're having trouble locating those people in 1870. So what that means to me is that either they were going by a different name or something may have happened to those individuals, and that might be the only place that we have the names recorded. So it's so important to share this type of information with us. That particular example, the person donated that record set to us. But we've also done exchanges of data with families who don't really feel comfortable giving up their family records, and I totally understand that. What we ask in that case is just a really good scan to be done of the materials, and then we'll just make that available on our digital library and archive. So an example of that is, and it's a crazy story, it's the family had this farm journal that was recording when crops were being harvested. And it has the name of the enslaved person and then what crop they were responsible for. So it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, corn, peas, hay, and then but the person's name is included. So we at 10 Million Names get that information. The family had that journal, and a few generations back, I think it was like the person who donated it was their great-grandmother. Their great-grandmother and the great-grandmother's sister both wanted it, so they tore it in half. So one sister has one half and one sister has the other half. So we only have one half of the book. So there's another half that is out there somewhere. And we're looking for the second half. But I really want to encourage people to look in the records that they have, their own family papers, because you might run into instances where information like that is recorded, and it's incredibly helpful to what we're doing at 10 Million Names for us to see that. And for you to donate it, you don't have to physically donate the items to us. We'll just explain to you how to get a good scan of it.
I gasped on behalf of our entire listenership that the fact that the solution was to split the book in half. Mercy.
Yeah.
That is excellent. Yeah, I imagine that it is so important because some of these names might have only been written down one time. So it might be unique in the world.
Right.
That record.
Right.
I'm curious to know, so in records where it might indicate that there were enslaved individuals, like estate records, what have you, but they are not, they're maybe just listed by gender and age, is that still helpful? Is there a place for that?
Yes, and I would submit that also on the forum that I just talked about. So it's helpful for us to know that a household was enslaving people, because then we know to look at other documents for that person. We might expand beyond and look at tax records or deeds, or maybe that person has their own personal papers that were donated to a university or whatnot. It just helps us to understand the full picture of what's going on in that community, in that household at that time, and we know how many people to look for. You know, we know there's 10, we know there's 12, we know roughly how old everyone is. Maybe maybe we can come up with an idea of like it being a family unit. All information is good information, especially when we're doing research like this on enslaved individuals, because there's records that exist. Like there's stuff that exists, and this work is possible to do. It's just we gotta pay attention to all of the details, because everything is going to help us to piece together the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but what is coming down the pipeline for the 10 Million Names Project? What is going to be happening in the near future? Anything you want our listeners to be looking out for?
So there's a few ways for you to get involved. You can volunteer, and you can volunteer from home. We use a system called From the Page. So what we do is we upload record sets to this the software program, and then you can, from the comfort of your own home, just index that for us, and we'll tell you exactly what we're looking for. Right now, we're working on a project in Missouri and in North Carolina, and that's specifically looking at deeds and extracting all of the names of enslaved people that are in deeds, systematically going through all of the counties in Missouri and North Carolina. And the reason that we actually started this project is when we announced 10 million names to the world in August, people came forward and said, I've been keeping a database of enslaved people in Missouri and in Missouri counties, and I wanted to know if you wanted to have it, which is incredible. So we already had a base to start with. That particular volunteer had done a few counties in Missouri, so we just have to expand it to all of them, which there's a lot of them in Missouri. But we had some place to start, which is encouraging, I think, for all people involved, because it's encouraging for volunteers because they can see that, the work that they're doing is adding to an entire collection set. It's helpful to our staff because we feel encouraged by, more and more names being included. That was a really wonderful find for us. And that actually happened in Missouri and in North Carolina, which is why we started in those two places. So you can help us by volunteering on that project. And if you're good at reading old handwriting and you have a computer and you want to help us out, that would be great. We're also looking for partner organizations. So if you belong to an organization or know of an organization where this type of work is being done, maybe on a smaller level, we would love to know about that, love to hear more about it. The same is true for record sets that you might know of that haven't been digitized yet, and you think it would make sense for that to be a 10 million names database. I'd love to hear about that too. You can contact us. There's contact information on our website and on 10 million names. I'm always happy to hear about that. And then finally, I just want to make one pitch for everyone signing up for our newsletter. So we do a quarterly newsletter called Origins. You can sign up for that on the 10 Million Names website, so 10millionnames.org. On that first page that you see, on the right-hand side, there's a place it says Get Involved. And there's all the ways that you can get involved. If you want to volunteer, you can click there and talk to Danielle Rose, who's our volunteer manager. She can help you get signed up for a project. But then there's also a place for you to subscribe to the Origins newsletter, which, of course, is free. It's fabulous. It's I wouldn't even call it a newsletter. It's more like a magazine. It's like a mini magazine. It's fantastic. There's information about what we're doing, partners that we have. There's always a feature article and, what to expect in the future. So I highly recommend doing that. So to answer your question, so we're working on projects, specifically databases with the WPA and Civil War USCT soldiers. We're also doing some volunteer projects looking at in New Bedford, persons of color living in New Bedford. There's a volunteer project looking at that. And that spans many, many years. And then we're also doing the Deeds project. So lots of things to look forward to. We have a goal of uploading 500,000 names, so 500,000 names to the database by the end of August. And we are on track for that to be the case. So we're in good shape.
That is pretty amazing. I'll be honest, when I first heard about what the 10 Million Names Project was, it was inspiring because it seems like one of those projects that shouldn't be possible. I mean, the barriers to researching enslaved individuals are just sometimes seem so huge, but it's amazing the progress that you guys have already made. And that's incredible.
To me, the key of this whole project is the collaboration effort. Mm-hmm. That's how we get this done. Because there are records that exist, but they're just in so many places. Mm-hmm. And the more that the more people know about the project, the more people can come forward and say, there's this record set over here that you can do, or actually there's this organization that's doing work over here. That would be helpful. I mean, it's the collaboration is what I'm most impressed with, proud of, happy to be a part of. Everyone wants to help, and it's just a really inspiring thing to be a part of.
Mm. Excellent. Well, we will be watching with great interest, keeping up to date here at Family Tree, and I hope you find the other half of that farm journal.
Hopefully the person is listening to this podcast.
Yes.
They say like, oh yeah, I got that in the closet.
If you're out there with the mysterious half of a farm journal,
yes,
this one's for you.
Yes.
All right. Well, again, for our listeners, that is 10millionnames.org. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us and sharing more about the project.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Family Tree Magazine podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode at familytreemagazine.com/genealogy-podcast. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, have fun climbing your family tree.